this week's episode of the Overseas Leafs Report. This week I'm at Amon Hills, which has Brunei's first and only ice rink. So I thought I'd try it out. Haven't been on the ice for about a year, so we'll see how this goes. I got the bucket just in case. While that was a lot of fun, we've got some more pressing things to get to as the Leafs made their way to Western Canada for a 3-pack of games versus Canadian opponents in the other conference. It all started in Calgary versus the Flames, who are fighting for top spot in the Western Conference. And on this particular night, I think the Leafs looked awesome. Freddie Andersen made some key saves early, and then from there, the offense took over. I mean, the fourth line was on fire. By the end of the first period, it was already 3-0. And by the end of the second, we had double hat-trick watch, as Tyler Ennis and Zach Hyman both sat on 2 goals. Ultimately, it was Tyler Ennis who got his hat-trick, his first career hat-trick, in front of his parents, so I thought it was a nice moment there. And the Leafs just kept cruising. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it wasn't actually a 6-2 game, you know, Freddie Andersen made some key saves. Well, that's what you expect from your top goalie. And on the other side, Calgary's goaltending was brutal. After that, full of confidence, Leafs made their way to Vancouver, faced the Canucks. First period was pretty competitive. I think both teams were playing strong. Vancouver came out stronger than expected, but they were at home. And it was in the second that the Leafs opened up. A great moment where Ron Hainsey scored a shorthanded goal off the Marner feed. And then another goal by a defenseman, Morgan Rielly, racking up the goals this season. So it was 2-0 at that point. I thought it could have even been more. Markstrom was keeping the Canucks in there, and I thought the Leafs hit autopilot at that point. Might have been a bit too early for the autopilot, though, as the third period was pretty much a disaster for the Leafs. Started off with Louis Eriksson scoring a goal 2 minutes, 21 seconds in. Shot that Freddie Andersen would love to have back. Then they get called for too many men on the ice. Now on the ensuing power play, you've got former Leaf Josh Leivo, who ties it up at 2. With the Leafs' stellar record leading after 2 periods, I had some confidence going into the overtime, but the Leafs weren't showing much then. And it was Edler for the Canucks who ultimately got the winner. Straight shot that beat Freddie Andersen. If there's any positive to pull from this is that the Leafs got 1 point, but this should have been an expected win versus the Canucks, who are not a playoff team. Leafs stayed in Vancouver after that game, then made their way to Edmonton for a rematch versus the Oilers. You'll remember the solid victory for the Leafs on home ice, and now hoping for a similar situation in Edmonton. Edmonton had Stolarz in nets for his first start with the Oilers, and from early on you can tell that the Leafs are just throwing everything at the net. Luckily, Edmonton is probably the only team defensively worse than the Leafs, so the shots are coming in volume. And right before the end of the period, on the power play, it's birthday boy Morgan Rielly who opens the scoring. Leafs are ahead going into the break. They increased their lead in the second with John Tavares driving to the net. 3 minutes into the third, Jake Muzzin got a goal off a sweet pass from Nylander. 3-0 Leafs, and from there everything seemed under control. Like with Edmonton, you know the shots that are coming in are from their top players. It's Draisaitl, McDavid, RNH. Those are the only guys getting quality chances. The plan was to keep the door shut and maintain Freddie Andersen's shutout. However, the Leafs were called for 2 quick penalties in the middle of the period, which put serious stress on their D as both Morgan Rielly and Jake Muzzin found themselves in the box. And while Edmonton didn't score on the 5-on-3 or any of the power plays there, it seemed to spark them. With the goalie pulled, Edmonton suddenly came alive. 2 quick goals really put the pressure on the Leafs, but ultimately in the last minute they were able to shut it down and preserve the 3-2 win over the Oilers. So the Leafs grabbed 5 out of a possible 6 points on this trip and now head back home for an important matchup versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. The goal remains to catch Boston and secure home ice in the first round, but Boston is on one of these hot streaks that doesn't seem to end.